Olivia reveals the true reason she chose to meet Ethan in the most recent episode of Welcome to Plathville. In the Season 7 conclusion, Olivia Plath, star of Welcome to Plathville, talked candidly about her most recent encounter with her ex-boyfriend Ethan. During the divorce process, the ex-couples met in person in Georgia rather than in court. She went back to the location where she was mistreated. Olivia's marriage to Ethan caused her to lose herself. She only got it after severing her relationship with Plaths and, most significantly, with him. He mistreated her emotionally and mentally for a long time, and he is unable to reverse it. Fans believe he would continue to be the same toxic man to Tegan, even though she will never forgive him. There was a report that he had slept with his ex-girlfriend's best friend either before or after their engagement. After divorcing with Ethan, Olivia Plath fell in love with Brendan once more. The wedding photographer flew from Los Angeles to tour the city where she had never lived before, and she and he moved into a new house in Washington, D.C. She spent the first 6 months there alone before asking her lover to accompany her. Then, by agreeing to a lease for a home in the community, Olivia and Brendan advanced their relationship. Even though Sarah and Ethan are still going through a difficult divorce in Minnesota, the couple is spiritually married. As evidenced by their flirtatious interactions in Season 6, their relationship life is going really nicely. They were deeply attracted to one another. She went on to say that progressing in life has greatly benefited her. Olivia Plath recently allowed her fans and followers to ask questions during a Q&A session on her Instagram story. A lot of their urgent queries were addressed. One fan in particular put pressure on her to explain why she agreed to see Ethan in Cairo. Most individuals have a lasting impression of the last episode of Welcome to Plathville. However, it was completely unexpected for Ethan and Olivia to encounter one another. She made her approach when the fan added what she even desired from him. She chose this question because it related to her previous time on TLC. Through a producer, her estranged husband wrote to her to say he wanted to meet with her in order to better understand their circumstances. Ethan sincerely wanted to apologize to Olivia and accept responsibility for everything when they spoke when she first arrived. The former TLC star then reasoned that it would be wonderful if he did it in public. Her only request was to visit him in a public area rather than a closed area where she wouldn't have crew members nearby. But the cast of 90 Day Fiancé, The Last Resort, had assembled for another intensely emotional treatment retreat at the Isla Mar Resort on a sunny Florida evening. While the palm trees were gently swaying in the breeze and the sun was sinking over the ocean, tension was building within the villa. But the sweeping meadows close to Cairo were bathed in orange and gold light as the Georgia sun sank. With his pickup truck parked next to him and the motor still making a faint ticking sound, Micah Plath stood at the edge of the ancient dirt road. His hands stuffed in the pockets of his faded trousers, his jaw clenched, he gazed off into the distance. He wasn't sure if he was prepared to see Veronica, but he knew she was on her way. There had once been beauty in their love. Hopeful, liberating, and wild. Her vitality, the way she could enter a room and make everyone feel alive, had always captivated Micah. However, something had changed throughout the months. Brick by brick, walls had been erected between them by fame, distance, and spoken fears, until only remnants of their former selves remained. The sound of gravel crunching beneath Veronica's tires broke the silence as her automobile approached from behind him. With her hair wafting gently in the late summer breeze, she stepped out slowly while sporting boots and a white sundress. She was still attractive, strong, and self-assured, but her eyes had a weight to them that hadn't been there before. She murmured softly, "Hey," and closed the door of her automobile. Micah looked at her for a long period and then nodded. "Hi." Neither said anything for a time. Everything unsaid hung heavy in the air. The sun went down, the tension between them pulsed like static, and the cicadas swarmed in the trees. With a trembling voice, Veronica finally said, "I didn't think it would come to this. Remember how we said we would fight for it?" Micah ran a hand through his hair and sighed. "I understand. However, it seems like we are battling more for one another these days than for ourselves." She took a deep breath. "'Cause, Micah, you changed. You've changed since you used to get up at the crack of dawn simply to call me. You have been aloof. Where else have you been? His boots scuffed the soil as he peered down. Veronica, I needed to discover who I was. I feel like I'm living two lives after everything with my family, moving out, modeling in LA. Furthermore, I'm no longer even sure which one is authentic. With her speech hardly audible above a whisper, Veronica took a step closer. What role do I play in all of that? Micah felt his heart tighten. That's the problem, I'm not sure anymore. Her eyes filled with tears. You don't want me anymore, or you don't know? She knew the answer in that quiet when he hesitated. Her breath was shaky as she turned aside and wiped her cheeks. Micah, I gave you everything, she remarked sourly. I reminded you of who you were when your modeling jobs made you feel hollow. I was there when the drama in your family broke you. Even when you didn't believe in yourself, I had faith in you. When Micah did speak, his voice broke. And I will always remember that. Veronica, you strengthened me. You gave me courage. However, it's possible that you weren't supposed to stay but rather to help me grow. Her tears flared with wrath as her head swung toward him. When folks are departing, they say that. You sound like every other guy who leaves and claims that it was growth when you say, you helped me grow. Micah flinched. I don't mean to cause you any harm, she remarked, but you are. 'Cause you're acting as though this makes sense. As if love were a mathematical problem. The statements were deeply hurtful. Micah found no response for the first time. He understood there was nothing left to do when he looked at her, the lady who had witnessed his laughter, tears, and dreams. Some things broke not because of hate but rather because love was unable to bridge the gap that life created between two souls. Veronica inhaled deeply before moving forward. Since you are unable to speak it, let me do it instead. Micah, we're done. The final, piercing words reverberated throughout the silent field. Something collapsed inside Micah like a window shutting. He wanted to embrace her and tell her she was mistaken, but he refrained from doing so. Because he knew in his heart that she wasn't. Goodbye, Veronica, he muttered. She blinked back tears as she nodded. Goodbye, Micah. With her silhouette against the setting sun, she turned and headed back to her car. Micah watched as she drove off, disappearing into the horizon as dust rose behind her. Long after she had left, he stood there while the night gathered about him. The silence felt heavy, too thick to bear for the first time in a long time. He looked at the old Polaroid picture of him and Veronica laughing under the fair lights from the previous summer as he got into his truck. With shaking fingers, he touched the corner and then yanked it free. Picture flew out the window and was carried away by the wind. He muttered to himself, perhaps some love stories are only meant to be remembered, not to endure. Truck's engine roared to life as he turned it on. The stars appeared overhead as he drove along the desolate road. They were far away, unreachable, but somehow reassuring. Micah understood deep down that endings were simply another kind of beginning, even when his heart hurt. The Veronica chapter was over. However, his tale, his quest for peace, love, and truth, was far from over. And a tiny, brittle hope started to blossom once more in that silent realization. But at Veronica Rodriguez's Tampa townhouse, the early sun softly filtered through the wide kitchen windows. The air smelled of freshly brewed coffee, but there was a heavy energy in the room, the kind that builds after a prolonged period of silence. With her phone in hand, Veronica sat at her tiny wooden breakfast table and browsed through social media stories that appeared to all include her name. Veronica and Micah, problems in paradise? Is Veronica's role as a peacemaker over? With a heavy sigh, she put down the phone. She had always been the cool-headed one, the one who attempted to make everyone else feel at ease, even if it meant sacrificing herself. However, something had changed recently. Micah's modeling career had taken off, and he was traveling all the time while enjoying his fame, interviews, and the attention he was getting from his fans, particularly women. Even though she was pleased of him, Veronica couldn't get rid of the sense that she was falling behind. For weeks, the tension had been building. Cameras were set up to record their reunion after Micah had traveled back from Los Angeles for the filming of Welcome to Plathville, Season 7. Everything appeared to be ideal at first. Together, they made dinner, laughed, and reflected on their progress. However, everything changed after a get-together with the Plath siblings at a tiny outside cafe. "Yeah, I had dinner with Cassidy and a couple of friends in LA, Micah said nonchalantly. "Last week. She is also considering relocating there." Veronica stopped. Micah has been tagged in flirtatious Instagram stories by Cassidy, the same model. "Oh, really?" She tried to seem nonchalant as she asked, but she could feel her fury building. Micah shrugged, utterly oblivious to the impact of his remarks. "Yes, it was merely a get-together meal. There is nothing to be concerned about." However, Veronica had had enough of dismissing things. "Micah, you say it a lot. Nothing to worry about, but I feel like I have to be okay with everything all the time. I merely wait while you get to travel, live your dream, and meet new people." Micah's comfortable smile faded as he sat back in his chair. "That's unfair, V. You are aware of my concern for you." She nodded, her voice hard but her eyes softening. "I am aware of your concern. However, showing up is not the same as caring." As the cameras recorded every word, the cafe became quiet. Mariah sipped her iced coffee nervously while Ethan and Olivia exchanged glances. Veronica wasn't just the encouraging spouse on Welcome to Plathville. For the first time, she was advocating for herself. Micah seldom talked to her after the day's filming was over. He left a brief text message saying, "We'll talk when I get back," before departing early the following morning for a picture shoot in Miami. This time, however, Veronica wasn't waiting. For the following few days, she thought about herself rather than Micah. She became aware of how much of who she was had been shaped by being Micah's girlfriend. She had her own aspirations and career, but she had gradually set them aside for him. Her pals had also observed it. Ashley, her closest friend, dropped over one evening with a bottle of wine. Ashley replied plainly, "Girl, you've been reducing yourself to fit in his world. How recently have you taken care of yourself?" Veronica chuckled quietly. "I can't even recall." "So that's your response." That evening, Veronica took out her laptop and went back to a goal she had put on hold for years, starting her own interior design company. For months, she had been creating mood boards and layout sketches, but she had never had the guts to make the move. She had not experienced independence in a long time until now. Micah anticipated that everything would be resolved as usual when he eventually returned. However, Veronica wasn't standing by the door this time. With her laptop open and papers strewn all over the coffee table, she was seated on the couch. "What is all of this?" He put his suitcase down and asked. "My new company," she remarked coolly. "I'm starting V Design Studio, my own design company. I've already submitted my licensing application." Micah blinked, rather taken aback. "Whoa, that's incredible. However, when would you have told me?" She gave a small smile. "Now. 'Cause Micah, it's not about you. It's about me taking care of myself at last." Micah took a seat next to her and spoke quietly. "I just got caught up in everything, V. I didn't mean to make you feel small." "I understand," she said. "However, I can't continue to live in your shadow. I have to be self-sufficient." A long, silent period ensued, containing years of unsaid feelings. "Are you ending our relationship?" Last, he inquired. Her eyes were calm but gleaming as she gazed at him. "No. I'm picking myself. We can work it out if you can walk with me as an equal. If not, though, I'll be all right." Micah nodded slowly as the truth of what she had spoken hit in. "You've evolved." "No," she muttered. "I simply stopped saying I was sorry for being strong." The episode that fans would later refer to as The Turning Point was broadcast on Welcome to Plathville a few weeks later. The sequence in which Veronica defended herself became one of the most talked-about moments of the season. Social media exploded with encouraging posts. Veronica at last discovered her voice. We've been waiting for this growth. Queen V Vitality. Her new firm, meanwhile, took off right away. She began renovating rooms and sharing her story online while working with clients all throughout Florida. She was even given a brief spin-off series on TLC titled Veronica, Redesigning Life. Micah, on the other hand, was quieter than normal, proud but modest as he attended her grand opening. "You're shining brighter than ever," he added, pulling her aside during the ceremony. "I'm fortunate to be standing beside you at all." She grinned. "Then, Micah, take a proud stance. Since I'm no longer lowering my light." Through confidence rather than drama or rage, Veronica had emerged as a symbol of self-worth and independence by the end of the season. She could be heard without shouting. She was respected without having to strive for it. She only needed to think that she was sufficient by herself. And her last remarks reverberated in the hearts of viewers everywhere as they saw her enter her studio with her head held high and smile at the camera. Standing up for yourself doesn't always mean leaving. It's about taking action, even if it means going it alone. But the sky was painted in shades of orange and lavender as the sun started to drop over Tampa's peaceful streets. Tension pervaded the air, not the quiet that typically characterized Plath family evenings, but rather a heavy, unsaid storm that was building between Ethan and Mariah Plath, two siblings who used to be unable to survive a day apart. Months had passed since their last meaningful conversation. A deep and agonizing feud had grown out of what had begun as minor arguments over life decisions. With her daring style, tattoos, and newly discovered independence, Mariah believed that Ethan had abandoned her. However, Ethan thought Mariah had changed too quickly and too drastically, giving up not only their family's customs but also the principles they were brought up with. That night, Mariah sat by herself on her leased apartment porch, playing her guitar without paying attention. She has always used music as a form of therapy. But tonight, every note appeared to be laden with longing and shame, and every chord seemed heavy. Her brother, who taught her how to fix a bike chain when she was 8 years old, who stole cake from her during family feasts, and who once assured her, "No matter what, we'll always have each other," came to mind. However, did they still? Ethan was working on an ancient Mustang in his garage miles away, his hands drenched with oil. He had always found peace in fixing autos. But he was unable to concentrate tonight. Olivia, his wife, had also noticed. "Don't you miss her?" She leaned against the doorway and asked quietly. Ethan let out a sigh and looked away. "I do. However, I have no idea how to change it. Our conversations always degenerate into arguments. She seems upset with me for stuff I don't even comprehend." "Perhaps she's not upset with you," Olivia remarked softly. "Perhaps she is simply hurt." A letter arrived for Mariah the following morning. It was a letter in Ethan's recognizable handwriting, not a text or an email. She opened it with shaking hands. "Hi, Mariah, I am aware that we haven't spoken for a long time. I've lost all sense of what to say. I only want you to know that you are still important to me. I wish I could take back the things I've said that have wounded you. My sister is you. I will always be proud of you regardless of your beliefs, singing style, or attire. Can we perhaps start over? Love, Ethan." Mariah's eyes filled with tears. She recalled their most recent argument, which took place after a family meal and in which Ethan accused her of throwing away their upbringing. She yelled back that she was simply attempting to be herself. The remarks had been piercing, the kind that left wounds and sliced deep. She hesitated for a second. Then, without giving it any thought, she picked up her phone and sent him a text. "Can we have a conversation?" "Coffee. Tomorrow. My reward." They met at a tiny downtown cafe the following day. Anxious and silently drinking his coffee, Ethan came early. He was both sad and nostalgic as Mariah entered. Her leather jacket hung loosely over her shoulder, her purple hair gleaming in the morning light. Even though she appeared stronger and older, her eyes still had that same sparkle. For several minutes, they sat silently. Mariah then broke it. She whispered, "You know, I didn't think you'd actually write." Ethan gave a small smile. "I didn't think you would really respond." A tiny, trembling laugh that conveyed months of suppressed emotion was shared by both of them. Ethan replied, "I just felt like we lost each other," following a moment of silence. "I was unsure of how to approach you without making a mistake." Observing her coffee cup, Mariah looked down. "Ethan, we both made a mistake. I also shoved you away. I simply felt like I was constantly being judged. As if you couldn't accept the person I was growing into." "I wasn't passing judgment," Ethan said softly. "I was afraid. Fearful about losing your identity. Fearful that if you continued to change, nothing of the previous Mariah would remain." Mariah's gaze grew softer. "Perhaps I needed to change, to discover my true self. However, that does not imply that I am no longer your sister." Ethan stretched across the table and grasped her hand for the first time in months. "I understand. And I apologize for not noticing that earlier." Hours passed while they conversed. About their early years, their parents, and their aspirations. Mariah told him about a new song she had written but hadn't yet shared. Ethan demanded to hear it. She sang quietly as they sat by the fountain outside. The lyrics were honest and brimming with hope, forgiveness, and suffering. "We constructed these walls out of pride and fear. On the other side, though, I can still see your heart. We might fight, we might fall, however, blood is more profound than the night." Ethan had sparkling eyes. "That's lovely," he muttered. "You always had a gift for language." Through her tears, Mariah grinned. "I guess you gave it to me." They got up and departed as the sun began to set. Now, though not quite repaired, the air between them felt lighter. Ethan said, "Let's not wait another 6 months to talk, okay?" before they parted ways. Mariah chuckled. "Agree. However, you will pay for the coffee the next time." Fans of Welcome to Plathville started to notice a change a few weeks later. A recent Instagram picture shows Ethan and Mariah clutching guitars and giggling side by side. The caption said, "Perfection is not important in a family. Forgiveness is key." The rivalry that had previously caused them to part ways suddenly turned into a reminder of how resilient love can be, even when it is broken. After all, the Plaths had always been a family based on music, faith, and hardship. And that was sufficient for Ethan and Mariah to begin anew. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Mina and I hope you're having a great day. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the video.